soothing voice, Jackie Evanko. Who? Huh? Who? Well, I'll tell you who it is. It's the only person to say yes so far to sing at Donald Trump's inauguration.
That happens to not be true.
What?
You have the Mormon Tabernacle Choir.
Right. I think Neo was going to sing too, right?
Mariah Carey.
This girl was, she won AGT. I'll tell you how long ago. Piers Morgan was there before Howard Stern. That's how long ago. But anyway, this is Jackie Evanko talking about Donald Trump. Well, two things. First of all, people loved the Brigitte Gabriel conversation moments ago. They loved her. And talking about Donald Trump, you know, the markets are doing very, very well since Donald took over. Our next guest, you remember a couple of weeks ago, Donald nominated Vinnie Viola, New York Treasurer Vinnie Viola, owner of Virtue, as the Secretary of the Army. Make a long story short, Vinny and his partner at Virtue and with the Florida Panthers, Doug Cifu, both dear friends of mine, specifically Doug, for many years since they bought the Florida Panthers. So joining us right now, Vinny's right-hand man in business and the owner of the Florida Hockey Panthers, Doug Cifu. Doug, Bernie, and Sid, good morning, pal. How are you?
How are you?
I'm doing great. Good morning, guys.
Good morning to you. Nice to have you here. Nice to have you. So listen, so for folks who don't know Vinny, I don't know, New Yorkers, obviously, a lot of them do, especially in Donald Trump circles. But for folks who don't know Vinny, why Doug Cifu was he the perfect choice for Secretary of the Army?
Well, that's a great question. You know why? I'll tell you why. Because this is a guy who has had his entire life a singular mission, which is just to give back. So this isn't political. This isn't about himself or about ego. As he tells his story, you know, grew up in Brooklyn, not with a lot of money, Italian-American kid. When he was 16 years old, he entered the gates of West Point, and it changed his life forever.
16 years old? He went to West Point?
Yeah, he graduated early. Yep.
No kidding.
Yeah, was just about turned 17 and served his 5 years in the Army for personal reasons. He couldn't continue. He always wanted to be a general, and he's always loved the Army. He's always wanted to give back, and because of these unique circumstances, he's now given an opportunity. I mean, you think about a guy, and Sid, you know him well, who's got everything in life. Well, you know, he's got a fantastic life, great family, great businesses, a lot of fun down with the team and down in Florida, and he's effectively given that all up to go serve his country and the Army because he cares so much about the soldiers and making the Army better and trying to do the right thing by our country.
Also, of course, as Sid alluded to, with you, Mr. Cifu, Doug Cifu, a very, very wildly successful businessman. And, Doug, let us tap into your expertise and knowledge. The stock market has been soaring. Well, it's been going up, generally speaking, throughout the year, but soaring since the election of Donald Trump, apparently due to confidence in the future. Can you explain that? Can you elaborate on that for us, please?
Yeah, sure, yeah. I mean, what we do here at Virtue is we're market makers, right? So we're in every market in the U.S., around the world. We trade in 36 countries and 240 markets in every conceivable asset class. So stocks, bonds, derivatives, currency products. So we see and touch it all. And obviously the U.S. is the driver a lot of that activity. And really what it is, it's exactly what you said. It's conviction and confidence. So when investors see that there's going to be perhaps a coherent tax policy, when investors see that there's going to be sensible and not oppressive regulation, they're willing to come off the sidelines, take their money out of cash, if you will, and move portfolios around and make investments. And companies are willing to make investments as opposed to just executing stock buybacks and other balance sheet tricks, if you will. So you really have that dual-pronged confidence and conviction in the marketplace, and money's pouring back into the U.S. stock market. It's obviously there's a lot of hope and promise that the Trump administration will deliver, and we'll have a sensible corporate tax policy that makes sense. We'll have regulations that make a lot of sense. I mean, I operate a very, very highly regulated global business, and particularly here in the United States. I can tell you from a personal perspective, being a CEO of a public company, I'm excited to see an SEC and a CFTC that actually apply rules and regulations practically and not through enforcement. It'll be a nice change after these last 8 years.
And it's amazing because while you're talking about regulations and all the things that are working now in favor and the confidence and why the market may in fact hit 20,000, all these good things, Doug, we know this during the actual election right before, the Donald Trump detractors kept telling us, if this guy actually wins this thing, we're going to see a market crash like we haven't seen in many, many years. Why do you think, what were they alluding to? Why would that have been the case?
I think there was a lot of, obviously, politics and fear-mongering, and to state the obvious. I think the key thing was, and I stayed up all night watching the markets and helping the firm here trade the night of the election. And really what you saw, Sid, was when Trump came out and did his acceptance speech, and he was terrific. I mean, I'm not, this is not a political right or left thing. I think even folks on the left were surprised with his sincerity, his honesty, and I think subsequent to that, and I would include Vinny in that, there's been a number of very, very credible, non-political picks, if you will. Obviously, folks that agree with Mr. Trump and his policies, but people that are incredibly competent that are going to run our government. And I think that, you put those two things together, I think the market investors look at that and said, look, he didn't say anything irrational. All the fear-mongering perhaps is wrong. He's put some real credible people around himself. I discount all the noise on the left about Goldman Sachs and all that kind of stuff. Gary Cohen, who I know personally, is one of the 2 or 3 most talented human beings I've ever interacted in my career. So we should be honored that a guy of that substance, if you will, is willing to pack it all in and move to Washington and help run our country. I mean, it's humbling. Exactly. Humbling that a guy like Gary would go do that.
Couldn't agree with you more. I said that yesterday about Rex Tillerson. We have a $26 million a year CEO who's going to become the American people's CEO, essentially.
Yep.
Is what we're getting. So I don't have any problem with billionaires or millionaires or whatever they want to say.
No, look, I mean, if there's one litmus test for public office, I think if you haven't made a payroll, right, if you haven't gone through the agita and the stress of having a business and making a payroll, how can you run a government? I mean, it's insane to me. I mean, I sit here, when we started this firm, obviously, we were all successful guys, but, we started basically, 3 guys in the proverbial garage, and we built this business into a multi-billion dollar, global business. I'm real proud of that. That's the beauty and the promise of America. Not what these guys on the left are throwing out, anti-Wall Street stuff. It's nonsense. A friend of mine named Jay Clayton got nominated a couple of days ago. He's a partner at Sullivan & Cromwell. My wife went to law school with the guy. Salt-of-the-earth guy. You guys would love this guy. Fantastic, brilliant lawyer. Went to Oxford, top of his class, University of Pennsylvania. We should be honored that a guy like that would give it all up, multi-million-dollar job, status, family, security in New York, and he's going to move down to Washington to be chairman of the SEC. I wouldn't do it. God bless this guy for wanting to do it.
Right, exactly.
And instead, you've got, folks on the left, senators and representatives who are questioning his credentials. They never even met the man. I mean, he forgot more yesterday than those critics were accusing him of. So it's just outrageous the way that this is politicized. To have a guy like Jay go down there and want to serve his country, we should be humbled and honored.
Speaking with Douglas Cifu, who is he's the CEO of Virtue.
Hold on, I fell off my soapbox. Let me get back up.
No, that's okay. Listen, man, that's what we're all about here. We like it. We like it a lot.
See how Sid gets me going? It's unbelievable.
He's the partner with Vinny Viola, who is now the secretary nominee to be of the Army. And so I want to ask you this, Doug. Part of the rise in the stock market, as we just talked about, is not only the confidence in the market that Trump's promised to bring back jobs, but he's already brought back some jobs, but the way he's going about it. For example, he tweets and people respond. He tweeted yesterday something about Toyota Motor, saying that Toyota, they're going to build a plant in Mexico. He says, no way. And right afterwards, they lost over $1 billion. The stocks plummeted. What do you think about Trump's that methodology of going about business that sort of way? It's
actually very interesting. Because to me, I think old media, and I don't want to insult you guys, I don't consider you guys old media, but old media, I think, is in a way kind of threatened, because here you got a product, whatever you want to call Twitter, a service, a mechanism that effectively disintermediates the intermediaries, right? So rather than him giving a press conference or putting out a statement or having a surrogate say something and then maybe it gets translated, if you will, by a reporter, he's now able to speak directly to both the business community but his 35 million, whatever it is, plus followers, and that then gets propagated in its primary form around to the world. I think that's terrific.
Yeah,
whether you agree with politics or not, the fact that, the leader of the free world can communicate directly, I have no problem with
get
that.
results from
right.
it.
Plus, and by the way, Doug is a avid tweeter himself. And,
I am.
As I am, and Doug kind of likes it when I go crazy on people early in the morning, just like Donald Trump does, right?
Yeah, people have told me, oh, look, I'm CEO of a public company, and I kind of, the face of a hockey team, so I can't go after the trolls. So I like when surrogates like Sid do it. It makes me feel good.
Well, you mentioned the hockey team, and Bernard and Sid here, Doug Cifu with us. And not only are you're working with Vinny Viola every single day at Virtue, but you guys are big, avid sports fans, and you grew up a big Ranger fan here in New York, and you decided a couple of years ago, you and Vinny Viola, to venture into professional sports. And here I am living in Boca Raton, going to Sunrise and watching the Florida Panthers every chance I get. And the next thing I know, Vinny and Doug out of New York buy the Florida Panthers. Now, we know this year's not going great. Not horrible, but not going great based on expectations. Right. But how's that gone so far? You think a couple of years in now, the market down in South Florida, not exactly a hotbed for hockey. How are you and Vinny doing so far with that?
Look, we're tough guys and we're very confident guys. I will tell you that it was much more of a disaster, frankly, than we even thought when we bought it, just because it had been so unstable and the fans were so abused for so long, and the hockey team had performed so poorly over so many years, and the leadership there was so vacant, if you will, that it took a couple seasons for us to even just to turn that around. And, we had some success last year. We've had mixed success this year. But I think, look, we're being transparent. We're being honest with people. We're being honest about pricing. We're trying to put a competitive product on the ice. God knows we spent a lot of money in the off season. I think we did $250-odd million of contracts. So we're putting our money where our mouth is. And, you know what it's like in South Florida. When you win, they love you. When they don't, it's not the Rangers, man. It's not the Knicks, You got to win. You can't have 20 years of not making the playoffs and expect people to come to your games. So, look, we know what we got to do, and, we're working our tails off to make it happen.
Is the stock market going to crack 20,000, do you think?
Yeah, I think it will. Look, the beauty of being a market maker is I don't have to make a directional bet, right? So I'm the smartest guy in the world because it doesn't really matter to me. Right. We're on the bid and on the offer. We basically make money by, making a spread, if you will, between people that are buying and selling. Right. But I think, look, there's such confidence and conviction. I think if there's a tax deal done relatively early in the administration, and they work out whatever they're going to work out on Obamacare, and there's some stability, I think it'll really blossom. I mean, to me, corporate tax is the biggest issue out there. I mean, the insanity of the U.S. corporate tax code. People criticize Apple for keeping jobs and cash offshore. What are they supposed to do?
All right, great. And Trump did a good job with that. 15%.
Absolutely.
He's talking about great job. Hey, I got one quick one for 30 seconds before you leave us, Doug.
Yep.
I know that you must know Anthony Scaramucci, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you know Mooch well. Okay, but he's in the fund to fund, and I've been reading at least that he's going to try to work for Donald Trump like Vinny Viola,
right.
but he has to sell Skybridge Capital first before he can do that. But there seems to be I don't want to say critics of the fund to fund business that he's in. What is that all about?
Well, no, look, he runs a great business. I mean, really, what he does is he performs the service of doing the due diligence on the managers, right? So as someone who's got to invest capital, Sid, you've got literally, thousands and thousands of options. Hedge fund managers, private equity managers, money managers, and what his firm does, it does all the hard work to go through all of those folks, do the due diligence, see what their style is, how they're performing, do all the requisite, Bernie Madoff type of due diligence and all that, and they get paid a small fee for that. So that's it's a great and valuable business. In that business, you got to perform as well, and Anthony's firm clearly has performed over the years. He's a phenomenal businessman.
There you have it, Doug Cifu, CEO of Virtue Financial, a heavy hitter on the Bernie and Sid Show. Doug, thank you.
Excellent job, Doug. Nice to talk to you again, buddy. God bless you. The great Doug Cifu.
Thank you. On the Bernie and Sid Show, back after this.